Hey, my name is Anna Woznovich, and I'm the co-founder of Nocturnal, an LA-based interactive audio studio. We create spatial sound for all sorts of immersive media, ranging from VR, AR, 360 videos, installations, immersive theater, live events, apps, even training platforms, you name it. I'm really excited to be helping out Nir with this course. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through creating spatial audio in Pro Tools using the Facebook 360 Spatial Workstation. First off, you'll want to make sure you have the Facebook 360 suite installed and that you're working in Pro Tools Ultimate. I recommend using a Mac as well, since Pro Tools tends to be a lot more stable than on a PC. So when you open Pro Tools, you'll get this dashboard and you'll want to create your project from this template right here. You can save that wherever, click Create. Great. It's going to build out all the different tracks, and this is your template. So, really quick, this comes with the Facebook 360 suite that you've downloaded, so you have your spatial mono tracks, spatial stereo, B format, or ambisonic tracks, and then you also have your headlocked audio over here. So let's start off with just a mono spatialized track. Let's start out by importing a sound. Just anything, let's see. Great, so that's our mono track. Let's open the Facebook 360 plugin. You'll see right here some of the main features are azimuth, elevation, and distance, which essentially correspond to your X, Y, and Z axis. And so as I'm playing this back, I can see as I move this dot around right here, it's over to the left, it's over to the right, it's behind me, you can move it all around, as well as add some distance to it. And then the elevation is up and below you. So let's just reset these back to normal. There's also attenuation for each sound effect. So you have your minimum distance and your maximum distance, which correspond to when the sound starts attenuating and when it stops attenuating. So let's keep the minimum distance at 1, and let's say the maximum distance is 20 meters. And then the factor tells you the ratio at which the sound is attenuating. Next, you have directionality, and so each sound effect can be positioned to also have a direction in which it's playing. So over here, let's say we have the sound right in front of us, pretty close. You can kind of hear the difference in when you change the directionality. And so that just helps you create a more realistic sound, especially when you're taking into consideration room reflections and how big the room is. Directionality can really help you a lot with making a sound feel more real in that space. This is yaw, left to right, and pitch is up and down. So you can't see that being reflected in this window, but it's like nodding your head up and down. And the effect level tells you how strongly directional that sound is. So for example, as I'm playing the sound back, you have a kind of omnidirectional sound, and you can take it all the way to being super directional so that when you turn it towards you, you feel that directionality, and then it turns away. So let's say you have a character walking around in a space and they're wearing a lavalier, so the lavalier is constantly in front of them. Well, you as the viewer are not moving with them, and so this plugin really enables you to rotate that character on screen the way that they are actually rotating so that the sound is also moving with them. And finally, the coverage angle is how wide or thin this directionality is. Okay, next you have the Doppler, and this is also just how strong that Doppler effect will be. So for example, you can kind of hear that Doppler effect as you're moving by. And the last little section down here is room. And so remember this section for a second. Let's move over to the control plugin. And this is where you can actually set the size of that room. It's located on your control plugin track, which makes sense. So these are the defaults, but say I'm in a really tiny space, I can move these to be a really tiny space. And then I go back to my plugin. So if the room toggle is off, that sound is just playing back dry, but if you toggle that on, you hear the difference and you hear how this room size right here is affecting your sound effect. So the reflection level tells you how loud those reflections are, or that reverb in the space, and the reflection order slightly alters the shape or the path of those reflections. One thing I forgot to mention is right in this box here, you can select a video file, either monoscopic or stereoscopic, and you can load it in here. So this dot actually shows up on your equirectangular video, and then you can just move it around as well, which helps you with both elevation and azimuth, and then the distance is controlled down here. Cool, so this plugin looks pretty much the same across mono, stereo, and B format tracks. So this is my stereo plugin. One thing you will have to change right here is you can do just your left channel, your right channel, and mix down, which creates a mono mix down, or right here you have the stereo option. So now you have two separate points. I got my 1, 2, and so each of these points now has its own individual controls. Same thing, you just have to keep track of both of them now, and you can do all the way up to 7.0 tracks, so you'll have 7 little dots all around the space. And finally, for B format or ambisonic tracks, let's import one of those. Just some city sounds. So you have your source, roll, pitch, and yaw, which if you look at how a plane moves, that's how you can sort of visualize how this sphere is being moved when you're affecting these controls. So for example, rolling it, you're moving your sound sphere, you're pitching it, and you can change the yaw as well, which is probably the most noticeable as well. Finally, the envelopment control right here just controls the diffusion of this sound field. So another thing you can do is automate the sound effect. So up here in the automation controls, I want to set my azimuth, elevation, and distance to be automatable, and you can change each of these parameters as well, but these are the 3 I'm going to automate right now. Change this to touch latch. Go in here, you have your azimuth, elevation, and distance. Okay, so now when I'm going around, as I'm playing back, going around, moving my sound around. Cool. So as I zoom in here, you can see those automation parameters have been recorded, and so then I'm playing it back. It's doing exactly what I was doing as I was recording. And I can set this back to read to not mess it up. Great. Some other cool features are this converter right here. So you can go from different types of ambisonic formats, or the old Spatial Workstation 8-channel format, which is from earlier versions of the plugin, and output as either a binaural mix or first, second, or third order ambisonics. There's also this loudness meter, which is really useful. So you can see how loud your mix is, because traditional loudness meters tend to have trouble giving you an accurate portrayal of this 360 mix. Cool, and what I can do as well is, if I wanted to, I could also create a headlocked mix over here. These tracks will all route to stereo master. This is your stereo master submaster. So let's say I'm ready to export. You want to take this 3D stem track, record enable it, and if you have any of these headlock tracks, you want to also enable that one. We can just select the area that we want to record, and you're going to press Control Spacebar, and it'll start recording on both your 3D stem, which is a second order ambisonics file, and on your headlocked stem track. Great. So now that those are done exporting, we have this 3D stem and this headlocked stereo track. One thing you can also add on to this is the static mix if I wanted to record that as well, and that's just a binaural render of this 3D stem right here plus the headlocked. So it's great for previewing your entire mix in a stereo format. Cool, so now we're just going to export. I click on this. It'll show highlighted in my clip list. I'm just going to right click on it, export clips as files. You want to do interleaved, wave, bounced files is where I like to put things. By default, it'll go into your audio files folder, but it tends to get lost if you have a ton going on in your session. And then just click export. Cool, so that's done. And I do the same thing with my headlocked stem. So these are your exported files. Here you have your 3D stem or your second order ambisonics mix, and then this is your headlocked mix. So if you get lost, you can always refer to the Spatial Workstation guide that comes with every version of the plugin when you download it, and it essentially has a breakdown of all the different features and how to use them in both Reaper, Nuendo, and Pro Tools. So this is super helpful to just dig deeper into each of the features of the Spatial Workstation. A few little tips and tricks when you're mixing for spatial. In traditional film, you'd usually group your tracks together by type, so all the dialogue, effects, music, etc. together. For spatial, I recommend grouping your tracks by type if it makes sense, but usually by character or moving object. That way, if someone's walking around the scene, you can group all of their dialogue, footsteps, clothing rustle, anything they pick up or take with them. All of that, you route it under one submaster, and then you only have to spatialize that once. And this Facebook 360 Spatializer is great, but the plugin tends to eat up a lot of CPU power, so you don't want to have many instances of it throughout your session because your system may crash. Finally, don't get discouraged if something isn't working about the plugin. It might not be you, it might be the plugin, it depends what system you're using. This is all relatively new technology. So you can always try upgrading or downgrading versions. Some of them tend to be more stable than others. And as another resource, there's the Facebook 360 Spatial Workstation Facebook group, where users are active in helping you troubleshoot your problems. Cool, so that's pretty much the basics of the Facebook 360 plugin in Pro Tools Ultimate. Thank you so much, and best of luck with your spatial mixes.